Hello and welcome back everybody to the Food Build Factory, where today we're going to take a look at the Red Crusader. That's the guy you can see on screen right now, and as always I'm going to show you some gameplay in the first part of the video, and in the second part of the video we're going to take a look at the perks, mutations, equipment and everything else you need to know in order to recreate the character. So let's get right into it. What this is going to be about is a power armor heavy gunner, but we're primarily using our trusty Harpoon gun here. And this is going to be a little bit of an exciting build because, yeah, first of all, we're going to take a look into one of the legendary effects that have been buffed with the Steel Rain update, vats-hit-chance that is. And furthermore, it's not the first time I have shown off the Harpoon gun. It's actually one of my favorite weapons in the game, not because it's so extremely good or anything, but it basically is so unique in what it does compared to other heavy weapons. Nowadays we do also have how's it called? The plasma caster, which is also a single shot heavy weapon and performs similarly, if not better. But yeah, when the game came out, this was a very unique weapon, and I already liked it very much in Fallout 4. But there are some twists to the weapon, and yeah, most importantly, it's the reload time. But you have to consider, if you're only using one shot, which you usually do with a harpoon gun, then yeah, the reload time is rather crippling. On this occasion though, we are using a quad version with, as I already told you, vats-hit-chance, and the weapon being quad makes it so that the reload speed actually isn't all that bad anymore compared to how much you're getting out of it, and transforms the weapon into something really usable compared to a non-quad version. And yeah, that's basically what I wanted to show off here today. And it's no secret that, for example, a quad explosive harpoon gun, which is legacy by the way, is a very sought after weapon. Like, you won't see a lot of people using it, but every now and then, if you see someone using a harpoon gun, it's probably going to be that one. What I wanted to show off though is that, yeah, you can in fact still get quad harpoon guns, and while explosive is very powerful on them, since you can basically turn it into a shotgun using the flechette mods, I personally think that, yeah, it's absolutely not necessary to go for an explosive version here. You can do just fine, and in some situations I would say you can even outperform an explosive weapon. The reason why I'm talking about outperforming here is the simple fact that, yeah, you can get vats-hit-chance as a secondary effect if you're not really wanna use explosive, and that basically, in my opinion, counteracts the biggest problem with the build that you're running here. See, usually the problem that you're going to face is that you have to get a lot of things under one head. So you are in power armor, which means you usually want to have high intelligence. Then you have to have a high strength stat just in order to get all your damage boosting perks, and especially the faster reload perk for heavy guns, lock and load. So you're already at 2 stats that should be relatively high. Then you want to have a VATS-based character, meaning that you want to have at least some luck in order to utilize critical hits. Then you want to have relatively high agility, so you can use VATS for longer, having more action points to use. And lastly, yeah, you want to have relatively high perception, unless you really want to use the weapon in very close combat only. And yeah, combining all of that means that, yeah, you really have to put a lot of special points into stats just in order to make the build viable. And yeah, vats-hit-chance, that's basically saving us a lot of investment in perception, so that we can have rather low perception and still perform pretty well. And that's basically the saving grace here, because otherwise you would only have 2 dump stats, which are endurance and charisma, and both of them, yeah, while not the greatest perks, they do have some good options. Okay, maybe let's see if we can get a good gun food chain here. Sadly it didn't last very long, but yeah. especially once you're factoring in critical hits. You can definitely take down such an enemy like a Scorch Beast rather fast. Now there are definitely occasions where you will run out of AP. Talking about stuff like Miler Creens, for example, they can take a bit longer. But other than that, yeah, this build is very capable of doing everything from mob busting up to killing individual bosses. It's also surprisingly good for daily ops. I very rarely find a daily op that I can solo with this build here. Um, Maybe something like decryption robots with the resilient mutation. Those can be a bit hard, but yeah, most of the time you can rather easily do daily ops, and you also want to just in order to farm ammo for the weapon, because that's something you you basically have to consider how you're dealing with that situation, because the ammo is rather expensive. Now you're not using a whole lot. If I had to take an estimate, I would say like 500 harpoons last you for at least 2 to 3 days of playtime, depending on what you're doing. Especially if you factor in that sometimes you can retrieve them from enemies. But yeah, that's basically, my approach was to just do daily ops, and it's very efficient to farm them here. You one or two shot most enemies, and on average I would say you get like 15 harpoons back. So with a single daily op that you can even do in order to just finish it in time, not farming it for like half an hour or so, you can easily get something like 1,000 to 1,500 harpoons, which last you for quite a while. You will get like 300 or 400 just by finishing the daily op. So ammo isn't really a concern. Now, there's one thing I wanted to talk about during this video, which is I'm not quite sure if anyone is up to it. Basically, one big thing about harpoon guns, and especially why quad explosive ones were so prominent, was that they basically had unlimited ammo in a way, because I just told you that sometimes you can retrieve harpoons from enemies that you killed, and if you put the flechette mod on the weapon, which basically turns it into a shotgun, you used to be able to get multiple harpoons back from a single shot, meaning that you could just farm harpoons by shooting enemies, and even more powerful, you could just shoot dead bodies for a while and just farm harpoons like crazy. That has been patched. I'm not quite sure when this was. I can't really recall ever reading about it in one of the IDVs. So yeah, I guess this was kind of a stealth change, but I mean, it's not necessary to really point it out in my opinion, since it was basically an exploit. It was rather clear that this wasn't intentional, but yeah, that's something to take into consideration, because usually when people were using the harpoon gun, there was pretty much no debate. You were just going for the flechette mods modification, just because of the ammo situation. And furthermore, if you're using an explosive version, yeah, you also want this modification just to get more bang for your buck when it comes to your explosive effect. Since we are not using an explosive version and don't get any ammo benefit though, on this occasion I actually went for the absolute standard modification. There are barbed harpoons. I think they would be a bit better, doing the same damage as far as I remember, but they add bleeding damage. So you can just server hop and search the radar vendor bots in order to get the modification. Shouldn't be too hard. I decided to not really go for that though, just because it doesn't make too much of a difference. The bleeding effect is a bit lost on this weapon in my opinion, because yeah, your point is to kill enemies rather fast, and bleeding usually is good on high rate of fire weapons that take a while to kill an enemy, so you can really get the best effect of it. So as you see here, you just run up to enemies, one-shot them in the head. Very nice play feel. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but yeah, it's a very fluent gameplay. Let's put it that way. And definitely one of the most fun builds I've played around with in quite a while. Probably not even something that is too out of realm. Like, I guess it could be possible that you've seen something like that before, but I just wanted to point it out. Back to the weapon itself. The benefit from not using the flechette is, firstly, you get a bit more armor penetration, because similar to shotguns, yeah, splitting your damage onto multiple projectiles means that every single one of them has less base damage. But yeah, that's not the biggest problem, since you run stabilized, meaning that you already have a good armor penetration from a perk. And since this weapon has such a high base damage, even if you're splitting it up, you usually could do rather well with it. Still, you're getting a bit of a benefit that way, I think. And the other thing is you're getting better accuracy, which means that we can basically improve our range a little bit. And the most notable thing is that, yeah, if you decide to use this weapon in free aim, you basically have to use the standard or the barbed harpoons, because if you use the flechette harpoons, maybe I can show it off later. I think I have one harpoon gun with the flechette mods in my stash box. You don't... Yeah, you have such a crazy weapon drop-off. Bullet drop-off, sorry. I mean, it's not bullet because it's the harpoons, but you know what I'm talking about. That it's pretty much impossible to accurately aim at anything that's further away than like maybe 30-40 meters. That's probably even a stretch already. So yeah, if you really want to use it as a sniper weapon, you can do that by just using the standard versions and be better than I am with manual aiming. But it definitely works. It's fun every now and then, just standing on a cliff, sniping enemies off. And yeah, I prefer to use it in vats though. Where is he? I mean, okay, there he is. So you can see level 100 enemies can be a little bit of a stretch to one-shot, but factoring in a critical hit, we definitely don't have any trouble anymore. Level 75s go down with a standard hit, no problem whatsoever. Another thing to take into consideration is that you're using vats and power armor, which always means that your fusion cores drain rather fastly. We did have some countermeasures here, but being a non-automatic weapon, it's actually rather manageable, especially if you factor in what we are doing here. Talking about vented legs, talking about power user, and yeah, that's basically it, I think. Not a lot more we've done on this occasion, but yeah, it works fine. Yeah, sure, you run through some fusion cores in the process, but I found it to be definitely manageable. As I'm always saying when using such a build, the only real builds where it's very hard to pull off, I mean, in my opinion, are VETS commandos in power armor, for example, or guerrilla, anything that really has a high rate of fire. We're, by the way, using an excavator armor, so that lacking the ability to use calibrated shocks doesn't matter too much, but keep in mind, even if you're using calibrated shocks over something like the vented legs, yeah, shouldn't be too problematic. This guy here decided to make it easy for us, by the way, not moving and not shooting either, so call it natural selection that he's dead now. Alright, however, I missed you guys. Basically, you can see it's a very good build. I really like it. It's not a queen killer for sure, but yeah, I really love it. It's one of my favorite builds, and also I think the aesthetic turned out wonderfully with the just recently released Blood Eagle power armor skin combined with the Blood Raider power armor skin for excavator armor. I really think the whole aesthetic works rather well. I do love the exhaust pipes. Are they called exhaust pipes on the power armor? They are a great touch, when you ask me. So yeah, overall this was the gameplay part of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I think the build kind of speaks for itself. It's a very convenient build, I would say. Yeah, you don't have to think about a whole lot when playing. You don't really have to worry about dying. You can really just go all in and don't have to aim a whole lot for yourself. So yeah, overall it's a good build, rather ammo efficient, and yeah, I would definitely recommend you try it if you have access to a weapon like that. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I also had a quad that's crit harpoon gun, funnily enough, that I rolled both of these weapons in a matter of 2 hours or so from each other, which was kind of funny. And while I initially thought that yeah, going for the vats crit version would be fun just to kill tougher enemies, I found that yeah, the vats-hit-chance definitely helped me quite a lot. And the last thing I wanted to say here is yeah, what was changed about the vats-hit-chance effect is that earlier, before Steel Rain, it basically gave you 33% extra vats-hit chance, and now that was buffed to 50%, which was rather surprising to me, because usually Bethesda has a tendency to, if even, only buff stuff that, yeah, there were complaints for ages. And on this occasion, I was just surprised because, yeah, vats-hit chance was already a rather good perk, rather beloved, and I basically can't recall ever hearing anyone complaining that it was underperforming or anything, so that buff was kind of out of the blue. But enough talking about that stuff, we're now going to take a look at the build itself. So, as you can see up there, we have an excavator bonus, meaning plus 100 carry weight because we wear a full suit of excavator armor. And then our mutations here are as follows. We do have Adrenal Reaction, Bird Bones, Carnivore, Eagle Eyes, Marsupial, and Speed Demon. Not a whole lot. First and foremost, Bird Bones and Eagle Eyes, very straightforward combination for when I'm using a VATS character. Extra Agility means more action points to use in VATS. Eagle Eyes, more Perception, means better VATS hit chance, which we can definitely need, and better crit damage. Rather self-explanatory, crits are our biggest source of damage once we get a crit going. That's really a good thing to have. Then we do have Carnivore. This is just a leftover because on this character I tend to switch between melee and ranged combat. And if I go for melee, sometimes I do enjoy using some buffs, but on this occasion it was rather non-beneficial. You didn't really see it in action. Then we do have Adrenal Reaction, which is always hit or miss, but since we are rather tanky just because we are in power armor, yeah, we could definitely deal with less HP, and having more weapon damage when we are at 70, 60, 50% health or so was rather beneficial, if not necessary though. And lastly, we do have Marsupial and Speed Demon, straightforward. Marsupial, better jump height, even more carry weight, which is nice, but especially the jump height is what we're looking for. And yeah, Speed Demon on this occasion, very important. It's nice to have the faster movement speed, that's the reason why I even have it on a lot of melee builds, but especially the reload speed is nice. Now, if you have a standard harpoon gun, increasing your reload speed actually sadly doesn't help you, because while your reload animation is over faster, the weapon seems to have a artificial limit on how fast it can reload, because yeah, your animation is over but you can't shoot for another 1 or 2 seconds, so it's not all that useful. For some reason though, on a quad version that's no problem anymore and you actually get the benefit from faster reload. So yeah, Speed Demon definitely a nice choice in this situation. Then we go over to our equipment. In terms of the power armor, I do have a full set of legendary excavator power armor, but I had no real preference for what I'm going for. I was just rolling every single piece once, I guess. One piece I got from Scorched Earth event, and yeah, it's all over the place a little bit. You can see we have a 1-star auto-stim piece here, which is nice. Then we do have a Newton's piece. I mean, plus 10 damage and energy resistance is a bit of a, yeah, it is a bit lost on power armor, but what have you. Then we actually have a nocturnal piece, which is, well, a nocturnal piece, not a lot to say here. In terms of the helmet, that can't be legendary, but we have the sensor array, meaning that we have better perception. There's one that directly increases your VATS hit chance, which would be nice, but didn't really have the access to it. So yeah, I went for this. 2% extra, 2 extra perception is rather nice as well though. And then we have one Vanguard piece, similar to Mutants. Yeah, a bit of a waste on a power armor piece, but still, I guess we can see a benefit here. And lastly, we do have a Zealot's piece with weapon weight reduction and extra charisma. That's the one I got from the Scorched Beast Queen. And yeah, the weapon weight reduction definitely is nice here. Zealots, well, it's okay, and charisma is charisma. We don't really need that. So overall, yeah, we were doing rather fine here. And then we do have our weapon here, a quad vats-hit-chance harpoon gun. As you can see, I have a scope on it. There's also the option to go for a reflex sight, which would lead you to have better AP consumption, meaning less action points per shot, which is rather nice for vats. I went with the scope though for the simple reason that it gives us yet a tiny bit of a increase in vats-hit-chance, which I preferred over the less AP cost, because I found that in terms of action point cost, the weapon is actually rather efficiently. I don't really found it problematic to stay in vats due to action points. We do have a core assembly modification on our power armor torso, which makes it so we refresh AP rather fast, and that's basically enough. So yeah, that's it. As I said, standard harpoon. If I could decide and just snap my finger and have it, I would just go for the barbed harpoon. I think it's called barbed harpoon. Basically same damage, everything's the same as far as I recall, but yeah, you're getting a bit more bleeding damage. And the last thing to talk about the weapon, in my opinion, is in terms of condition, that's one of the only troubles I found with the weapon, is it breaks rather fast. We started this run here with about 120% condition, so yeah, we went through somewhat like 60% or so, which is yeah, it goes down rather fast, but not in the realm of not being playable. And that leaves us with our perks here, and as you can see, in strength we do a 14. We went for all the heavy gunner perks maxed out, since yeah, having high damage per shot is the thing for this weapon, so to speak. So might as well max it out and really lean into that. Bandolier I would really recommend, just because yeah, harpoons tend to be quite heavy. Now you don't have to carry the same amount like you would with a 5mm weapon, for example, but yeah, having 1,000 shots on you, 1,500 shots, definitely feels nice and comfortable, and that could weigh you down dramatically if you're not using bandolier. And lastly, we do have lock and load. So yeah, noteworthy mentions, if you definitely want to go for something else here, you could ditch out bandolier, put one more point into strength and use spare arms. Maybe that would lead you to a overall benefit in terms of weapon weight. Just because yeah, if you're using, in addition to the harpoon gun, maybe a 50 cal or so, that's something you just have to fiddle around with. But this combination here worked rather fine, and I never found a situation where I wished I didn't have the harpoon gun but something else. Then in terms of perception, it's a bit of an odd place, because we want to have at least some perception, but there's not a whole lot that we can make use out of. So I went with rank 3 of concentrated fire. This is a rather sensible choice, I would guess. After all, you're maybe not hitting something on the first try and you do have a follow-up shot ready. So yeah, I went for this rank 3, meaning that yeah, sooner or later we really reliably hit our enemy. And yeah, the other 3 points went into glow sight, just to have a bit of an additional damage when it comes to certain situations. Glowing death claws, mole miners. Well, on mole miners it's probably a bit lost, but certainly glowing ghouls, you get a lot of help out of this perk. So yeah, it's just there in order to fill up a gap. Then we go on to endurance, which is one of our dump stats, definitely. We do have rank 3 of fireproof, just to shelter ourselves from random explosions. And yeah, I wish endurance was a bit higher, because after all we are running through quite a few stim packs due to our auto stim piece. And yeah, I don't find it hard to live with, but yeah, we could definitely be more tanky, but we had to make some sacrifices somewhere. That brings us to charisma. I was torn between using Tenderizer and Lone Wanderer, but on this occasion I actually went without Tenderizer, because damage output is not the problem with the weapon. I found that being a bit more tanky and having faster AP regen was definitely the more sensible option here, even though yeah, Tenderizer would be nice. Maybe you have access to more legendary perks in terms of stat boosts, so you could do something there, but yeah, I went with Lone Wanderer, and I think it was a sensible decision. Obviously, if you want to go into a team, my guess would be to use rank 3 Tenderizer and rank 1 rank 1, there's only rank 1 of Strange Numbers. Then we have Intelligence, which is rather high at 14. We do use Power User in order to restrain our Fusion Core from draining so fast. Then we do have Stabilize. These are basically the most important perks in my opinion. So yeah, better armor penetration. Not as necessary as usual, just because we're having high damage per shot, which is a bit unusual for heavy weapons, but still, I tried to play without it, and you definitely still see a benefit in using Stabilized. Then we do have batteries included in Gunsmith. So Gunsmith, rather straightforward. I just told you that the condition of the weapon goes down rather fast, and while with Gunsmith I think it's definitely a manageable situation, I personally thought that, yeah, without Gunsmith it's a bit tedious to always repair your weapons, so on this occasion I would definitely recommend you equip Gunsmith. And well, batteries included is just there because on this character I do have a ton of fusion cores, so they would weigh me down dramatically if I don't have batteries included. But even if it wasn't so much fusion cores that I was carrying, I think, yeah, batteries included is not a bad decision in any power armor character if you have the points to do so. Then we go on to agility. This was basically the stat where I fiddled around the most with in terms of how much agility I want, because yeah, you know, depending on vats. Usually if I'm depending on vats, I just straight up go for 15 agility and even try to buff it with legendary agility. But on this occasion, yeah, I tried around a bit, and yeah, I felt like 11 agility was definitely enough, and also giving us access to some perks that we could make use of. Mostly Action Boy, just because, yeah, if we run out of AP, this combined with Lone Wanderer and our core assembly a modification on our torso means that we can replenish AP very fast. Then we do have rank 2 of Born Survivor. You could go down one rank in agility and use rank 1 of Born Survivor, but what I did here is I basically had 2 steps of Born Survivor, because if you recall, I do have an auto-stim armor piece, and which activates at 20% health, and this here Born Survivor perk which activates at 30% health. What that means is that usually Born Survivor saves our ass, and if we're really in a situation where we are out damaged, meaning let's say 203 ballistic Mr. Gotsis, if they bring us down to 30% health, Born Survivor procs, we get a stim pack, so it tries to heal us, and that doesn't help or doesn't save us, and they can still out damage our healing. We do have a second step where we get another stim pack, and very rarely do enemies burn through that. The only situation where sometimes I feel like this safety net doesn't really work is against stacking up of poison damage. Maybe in hazardous daily ops, where yeah, if you run through a field of 2 to 3 dead enemies, that can stack up rather quickly, or Mylar Queens combined with a legendary Mylar King, yeah, they can bring you down, but other than that, you're basically very safe. Then we do have 1 rank of Gun Fu. We could have definitely went higher, but yeah. I just wanted to have the gimmick of switching between enemies and could live without the damage boost, so rank 1 was it. And lastly we do have Adrenaline, which is universally good and definitely comes in handy if you're fighting, especially against the super mutants. You may have to take 1 or 2 shots for the first few super mutants, but once Adrenaline is going, you can definitely one-shot them. Except for, as I said earlier, maybe the level 100 ones, but even then, yeah, you do have crits ready. And that brings us to luck. We do have Grim Reaper Sprint, rather importantly on this character, who makes it really easy to stay in vats all the time. Better criticals is self-explanatory. Yeah, if we want to have a critical boosted by better criticals, boosted by Eagle Eyes, that is massive damage on this weapon. We're talking about a very high base damage weapon. Yeah, and if you have a crit on that, yeah, it's devastating. There's relatively few enemies that can be one-shot with it. Then we do have Four Leaf Clover. Premise is quite simple. On this occasion I was torn between using Critical Savvy or Four Leaf Clover. I didn't really have enough luck so that critical savvy would give me a crit on every second hit. So you would use 3 hits in order to refill our critical meter, even with critical savvy. So on this occasion I thought that 4-leaf clover may be the better option, and just by observing when I'm playing, I think that yeah, that was the sensible decision here, meaning our crits are a bit of a luck-centered trait, which is rather self-explanatory, but even more so than usual on this case. And yeah, I found that it was enough though. After all, we're doing a lot of damage just by hitting the weak spots and having a high damage weapon, so we don't really rely on crits. They're just nice to have when we're fighting bosses. And yeah, lastly, we do have Starch Genes and Luck of the Draw. Starch Genes is just there to keep our mutations and not get any new ones that we don't like eventually. And Luck of the Draw, well, we had 1 point left here. We could have spent it somewhere else, but I found that it definitely helps a little bit with keeping our gun in action for a bit longer than otherwise. Not a necessary step though. You could also increase luck and go for rank 3, which would probably be a sensible option, but yeah. Then we do have legendary perks, which is the last thing we're going to take a look at. So right off the bat, the boring ones out of the way. We do have a few stat boosts here. 2 extra intelligence, strength, endurance, and perception. Those just give us extra perk points, basically. That's all it is. So yeah, these are kind of necessary in order to use all the perks that we use in this build. And then we do have Far-Flung Fireworks and Electric Absorption. Electric Absorption at rank 3 is basically God mode when it comes to fighting Assaultrons, fighting Blood Eagles with Gatling lasers or Flamers, so you name it. Very good perk, also helps us with not burning through fusion cores so fast, just because yeah, every now and then we are just getting them recharged. So especially if we're fighting super mutants, there are usually always at least a few that have laser rifles, which just makes it so that we can basically kill them without a loss in fusion core drain charge. Sorry. And Far-Flung Fireworks is just funny. I think for some reason it works rather well with the weapon, just because you're feeling like you're making such a big impact that an explosion following up just feels a little bit sensible, well, even if it's not. But yeah, what should I say? It's fun and helps you when you're fighting. When you're fighting mobs, groups of mobs like ghouls. If they stack up at the White Spring, for example, and you get Far-Flung Fireworks to trigger due to the high base damage of the weapon. Yeah, if you get Far-Flung Fireworks to trigger in such a close group, yeah, you can actually take down 2 or 3 or even 5 enemies in one single shot, which is really fun if it happens. So yeah, that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it, guys, and a bit of a laid back video, a bit of a vanilla take on a build. Not a whole lot new here. Basically we just were taking a look at the buff on vats-hit-chance, and yeah, just use a legendary para armor set, but there was nothing too noteworthy here except for maybe the combination of Autostim with rank 2 of Born Survivor, which could have been a bit of a niche use that wasn't possible prior to that, other than using the medical torso, but then we would have lost out on core assembly plan. But yeah, I really enjoyed the build. It's one of those that I have played for quite a while. It just yeah, it wasn't my loadout for 2 months at this point. And yeah, I just switched the aesthetic every now and then a little bit around. Maybe I can show you the first one I went for until this here skin came out. So yeah, that was the initial take, which I also really liked. But yeah, ultimately I do prefer the new one here. And well, last thing I wanted to say is I really have something special in the coming. It's rather fun. I actually found out that the Space Invader, the gimmicky, stupid weapon that Bethesda released as a skin, but it wasn't, and it was just a craftable weapon, so no one ever used it, because it couldn't be legendary. It can now be legendary. So, since I just wanted to make a new take on a VATS melee build anyways, that's going to be the weapon we're testing out on. I'm just still trying to craft a version that's at least decent to use with the build I have in mind. But yeah, that will probably be the next build, and keep an eye out, because I think today I also going to upload the next part of the Outer Worlds series. So see you next time, guys. Bye.